Or for instance, if you're looking at somebody and you might be sending money out to a contractor to do a service at Jeffco, he might be able to look at that and wait a second, I can beat that price. Tell me a little bit about how you took over what you did after this first push for transparency, and then Jeffco decided to put on this new website. And I can tell you're a little stunned that you're getting so much attention for this website, because I don't think you thought you were doing anything all that spectacular. What did it cost?
The initial design and setup of the system was about $15,000, and then we spent about another $5,000 on modifications. We've used our existing systems, PeopleSoft, to program it and set it up. When we started this, and based upon what was going on in the public and our thinking about how can we serve our public and do it right, we had a lot of information because we had a lot of conversations last November about what was out there. So we took that information, took the questions, pulled together our technology team and our financial services team and our budget team, and started designing something that would meet the needs that we had seen so far. Of course, as you go down the path, you always find things you can do even better and make it simpler. You get a few questions and you say, geez, if we just had this one change, that will stop those questions.
So all in all, for Jefferson County, what's the budget of Jefferson County School District?
$678 million general fund.
Okay. You had to spend about 20 grand to get this product up and running so that we could look at your books more closely. Is that about
That's
right?
Correct.
All right. Last year, when there was a bill that would put this forward to all school districts, it was really said, no, you can't do it. It's too expensive to do. 20,000 grand, which is of course more than I pay you every year, but still, it doesn't sound like that much money.
You know, for a district the size and scale of Jefferson County or DPS or some of the larger school districts in Colorado, it isn't. I think a lot of the objection to the bill that came out last year was from the smaller school districts, where $20,000 would be a pretty significant chunk of their budget. And what the Colorado legislature is proposing to do now is kind of a lighter version of transparency. It's called House Bill 1036. And has the backing of a lot of the established groups in education, would require all school districts to just post what they call the check register in a PDF format online. It's not as great as what Jeffco has done, but it's a small positive step, and it'll open up the books for a lot of school districts that probably can't afford to do what Jeffco's done.
Let me ask you a question that Lorie might be hesitant to ask. If Jeffco can do it for 20 grand, can't pretty much any government in the state also do this type of level of transparency?
A lot of governments can. I mean, there's a lot of governments without excuse right now. And I know there are actually some that are moving forward. Douglas County Schools, for example, which is the third or fourth largest school district in Colorado, they are planning to unveil something pretty similar to Jeffco later this month. So what we're seeing is, as Jeffco moves forward and pushes the ball forward on transparency, that they're giving incentive for other government agencies to keep up. It's like a competition.
Yeah, listen, I understand. You work for the largest school district in the state. Mm-hmm. I understand. I am complimenting you on something you've done, and that makes you and everybody else at Jeffco a little nervous. But you guys did true. Mm-hmm. But you did a good job.
We did do a good job. But I want to speak, if I can interject a little bit with what Ben's response was. There are a lot of governments working on this now. There really are. So it's not that Jeffco's the only one. A lot of governments are moving in that direction. Jeffco, being the size that we are, we do have the resources, and I mean the human capital and the technology tools to move at a faster pace because we're positioned to do that. Other governments, when you look at setting up a tool like we have for transparency, not as easy because they may not have the PeopleSoft tool. The ability to download that information and make it available in Excel is also very accessible to the public. Jeffco also has hundreds of thousands of transaction lines a year. Having a searchable database makes more sense.
What's a transaction line?
Check line. So if a check was written for two different items, it'd have two lines. Or a P card bought one thing, it'd have one line. So about 100,000, more than 100,000 transactions a year to search through if people wanted to look at that. A smaller district dumping that information into Excel, it's just as accessible as our tool. It's just they have fewer transactions. So there really are a lot of governments working on this to get this done.
How does the website work? I mean, all I know is that a lot of governments have put up transparency sites, including Colorado and a lot of school districts around the nation. And I'm hearing from people all over the country that say this might be the best transparency site they've seen, because you can actually dig in, ask it questions, get information, get detailed information on what the expenses are, so you have a better example, how does it work? How would it work for a user? I go online.
So if you go online and walk through the steps to get to the website, we have actually broken it down by fund type. So you can actually see if you're searching transactions paid for by tax dollars or by reimbursed expenses. So you can target where you're going in. Then when you go in, you can search by vendor name. So if you wanted to look up Domino's, you could search by Domino's. And so there's a lot of flexibility in how you search.
So I could look in there, I could say, I want to see how much you spent for Domino's, but it would show me that you spent $10,000, but half of that was reimbursements for or pass-throughs from students or parents going to some activity, and the rest was used for lunch day or something like that. I would be able to see that information.
You would.
Okay.
And you would be doing two different sorts to pick that up, because you're going to look by taxpayer or by funding mechanism. So when you look by government funds, you're going to see that part of Domino's. Then when you look by the reimbursed or other funds, you're going to see that. So.
Does this make your life harder or easier? I'm just curious, as the head accountant, as the chief financial officer for the largest school district, are you worried that having this online is going to bring out the gadflies who are going to sit there and poke around at every little thing, or do you think that you've given them all the information that will answer their questions so you don't get bothered and you can work on the important stuff?
Interested citizens always have had those questions. So if they were looking before, they're looking now. So that's not additional work. It's more readily available for them. We have had more folks go in and have some additional questions. In the long run, it'll pay off because we're going to have the credibility. For every call that we get, we're educating a citizen as far as what those expenditures are. And if by chance there is an error or something has been misclassified in the expenditure, we can fix that. So that's also beneficial. So it's a good thing.
So you've had us gadflies poke at you before, saying we want this information.
Once or twice.
Once or twice.
Once or twice.
Once or twice.
Yeah.
All right. So now we can poke at you through cyberspace, and hopefully we can get all our information, and I won't have to be taking up your valuable time when you're doing your real job. Is that?
I think that's true, but I think it's also going to trigger some more questions as far as folks wanting to gain an understanding why we might have spent the dollars the way that we did, even if it's taxpayer dollars and the questions.
I get a sense that a lot of politicians, the legislature here, for example, are hesitant about transparency. They're not as comfortable at saying, let's put this out the way we want, and we can defend our spending, we can answer these questions, and who knows, maybe we'll find a few mistakes, and that's okay. In Texas, where they put in a transparency website, it went to a vote on the House floor. This is one of my favorite stories about transparency, and it failed on a voice vote. Failed on a voice vote. Somebody called for a roll call vote, and it passed unanimously without a single vote against it. And the reason is, no politician wants to be the guy against doing what Jeffco has done, but no politician really wants it, because I don't think a lot of government officials want people poking around in the finances in that detail. Am I right?
Even if there's not any sort of wrongdoing or corruption going on, there's understandably some trepidation, and maybe some of it has to do with not understanding the technology or some other fear like that. But I think we've seen from Jeffco's experience that really it's a healthy process that builds trust between the citizens and the government agency. And if you're at least be able to talk the same language about how money is being spent, you're at least one step closer to making sure money is being spent appropriately.